Hello, and welcome to Inner Spark, the channel where real stories light up your path to greatness. Today, you'll hear a powerful journey about a young man who discovered that failure is not the end, but the very start of success. Failure often feels like a closed door, but in truth, it's a lesson disguised as pain. This story will take you through a roller coaster of struggle, resilience, and eventual triumph. Edwin's journey proves that the darkest setbacks can become the brightest beginnings. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inner Spark for more life-changing stories. Edwin was 23 when he left his quiet coastal hometown in Brighton with a heart full of dreams and a pocket almost empty of money. He believed the city of London would open doors for him, doors that would lead to building his own creative agency. His talent for design was undeniable, and his notebook was filled with sketches that looked like glimpses of the future. But dreams rarely translate smoothly into reality. The capital was crowded with competition, and every meeting seemed to end with polite rejection. He smiled on the outside, but inside, doubt began to whisper louder with each passing week. He took small jobs to survive, delivering food, stacking shelves at night, and working on design projects that paid pennies. Friends back home often called and asked how the big city life was treating him, and Edwin would laugh, hiding the truth. His rented flat was damp, his fridge was often empty, and his laptop was his only real companion. Many nights, he sat staring at the screen, asking himself if he had made the worst mistake of his life. Failure felt like a shadow that never left his side, growing darker with every setback. Yet, something inside refused to let him stop trying. One rainy evening, while rushing home after another failed client meeting, Edwin ducked into a second-hand bookstore to escape the storm. He wandered through the aisles and found an old biography about a bankrupt entrepreneur who eventually built a global design empire. The story struck him hard. If someone could rise from complete ruin to greatness, maybe his own failures weren't final after all. He carried that book home like treasure and stayed awake the entire night reading. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of possibility return to his heart. The very next morning, Edwin wrote down a new plan. Instead of waiting for big clients to notice him, he decided to approach small local businesses, cafes, vintage shops, and market stalls, offering to design their branding at affordable rates. Most ignored him. Some laughed at his persistence, but a few agreed to give him a chance. He poured everything into those small projects, working long hours to make his design stand out. Slowly, whispers about a young designer with unusual talent began spreading. He was exhausted, broke, and constantly doubted himself. But he was also finally moving forward. Just as momentum began building, disaster struck. Edwin's old laptop crashed, wiping out weeks of unpaid work for 3 clients. He sat staring at the blank screen, heart pounding, tears burning in his eyes. It felt like everything he had fought for had collapsed in a moment. Some clients were furious, demanding refunds he couldn't afford. Others walked away, convinced he was unreliable. For 2 days, Edwin barely left his bed, thinking maybe this was the end. But then he remembered the book he had read, the line that said, "Failure is never the final chapter unless you stop turning the pages." With trembling hands, he decided to start again. He sold his bicycle to buy a second-hand computer and rebuilt every project from memory. It took sleepless nights and endless coffee, but he delivered the work. One client, a small bakery owner named Clara, was so impressed that she recommended him to all her business contacts. Slowly, opportunities began returning, though never without struggle. Edwin learned to back up every file twice, a simple but powerful lesson failure had forced upon him. His determination deepened, but so did the weight of survival. He often wondered if life was testing him to see how badly he truly wanted his dream. Months later, he received an unexpected email from a woman named Amelia, who owned a small but growing clothing brand. She had seen his work online and wanted him to handle a full rebranding campaign. It was the biggest chance Edwin had ever received, and the pressure nearly broke him. He worked 14-hour days, consumed by anxiety that he might fail again. His friends warned him to slow down, but he couldn't afford another misstep. When he finally presented his designs, Amelia was stunned. She said his work had not only captured her brand, but transformed it completely. That single project became the spark that lit everything else. Amelia's brand took off, and soon other businesses reached out, wanting Edwin's creativity. His calendar filled with projects, and money finally started to flow. Yet with success came new challenges, deadlines stacked high, and perfectionism gnawed at him. One demanding client publicly criticized his work online, shaking his confidence to the core. For days, Edwin avoided answering emails, fearing more backlash. But then he remembered his earlier failures, how each one had taught him something. This time, he chose not to run. He apologized, fixed the mistakes, and turned a critic into a long-term client. But life had another twist waiting. Just when Edwin thought he had found stability, his landlord raised the rent, forcing him to move out of his tiny flat. With nowhere affordable in London, he considered giving up and returning home to Brighton in defeat. On his last night in the flat, surrounded by packed boxes, Edwin received a message from an old classmate named James. James had just opened a co-working space and offered Edwin a desk for free until he could afford better. That small act of kindness saved him. It reminded Edwin that failure often opens hidden doors through unexpected people. Working at the co-working space brought new opportunities. He met writers, photographers, and entrepreneurs who admired his dedication and started referring him to their networks. For the first time, Edwin felt like he belonged to a community rather than fighting alone. But success didn't come without new temptations. Some offered him quick money for shortcuts that compromised his values. Edwin faced a choice: chase easy gains or stay true to the principles that had carried him this far. He chose integrity, even when it cost him short-term profit, knowing that trust was worth more than money. Years passed, and Edwin's agency slowly grew from a one-man struggle into a small studio with a handful of employees. He never forgot the damp flat, the hunger, or the nights of staring at failure, wondering if he should quit. Those memories shaped how he treated his team, never as workers, but as partners in a journey. When interns joined, he told them the truth: that success is built on scars, not shortcuts. His honesty inspired loyalty, and his agency became known not just for design, but for resilience and authenticity. One evening, as Edwin walked past the same Camden bookstore where his turning point began, he paused. The stormy night, the dusty biography, the hopelessness, all of it came back in a rush. He realized that without those failures, he would never have grown into the man he had become. He smiled, knowing failure would return in new forms, but no longer feared it, because failure had become his greatest teacher, his quiet companion, and his reminder that every setback was simply a step towards something greater. Edwin's journey teaches us that failure isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of wisdom. Every setback he faced carried a lesson that shaped his future. So, when failure knocks at your door, don't see it as a signal to quit. See it as an invitation to rise stronger. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inner Spark, where stories of resilience light the fire within you.